Hey, we're back, folks. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon and The Blackest Heart and the Lonesome Crown, all published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today we're going to be discussing another novel by one of my top 10 favorite writers, Ken Follett. We're going to be talking about his sequel to Pillars of the Earth. His sequel is World Without End. I've got the hardcover up here, the paperback right here. You can find my review of Pillars of the Earth somewhere on my channel. I will likely link to it at some point on this video. Probably the end, though I make no promises. The World Without End. Let's discuss it. It's the sequel to Pillars of the Earth. Takes place about 150 years after the events of Pillars of the Earth. We won't get into any of the events of Pillars of the Earth. However, some of the characters in the Pillars of the Earth, their descendants are in World Without End. Pillars of the Earth takes place in the 11th century England. A World Without End takes place in the 13th century England. Around the time of the Black Death, which is incorporated into the story, and the beginning of the 100 Years' War, which is also sort of integral to the plot. So, right off the bat, Ken Follett, the master of historical fiction, I'm telling you guys, other than Bernard Cornwell, maybe Con Iggulden, Ken Follett is the king of historical fiction with his Pillars of the Earth series, of which I've got all of them, and his Century trilogy, which I've got all of those too. I read them all. He's, like I said, one of my top 10 favorite authors of all time. Like, I got all of his stuff. Got all of it. All of it. Never met the man, but I've read all of his stuff. Would like to meet the man. Probably someday in the future. Anyway, let's talk about World Without End. Set in Kingsbridge, England, just like Pillars of the Earth. It's set in Kingsbridge, England, a made-up town that's sort of supposed to represent sort of Salisbury, England, and down there in the southern part of England near Stonehenge. Thus, I wore my Stonehenge shirt. I did visit Stonehenge. This is actually from the Stonehenge gift shop. Bright red. It's the only color they had. Normally, I only buy shirts that are black, gray, or dark blue or something. Maybe white. Anyway, that's an aside. If you want to know the landscape we're talking about, it's southern England. Cathedrals, castles, knights, outlaws. You know, all that stuff. I mean, let's just talk about, before we get into the nitty-gritty sort of plot points, I don't do spoilers. They're not really nitty-gritty. Just my overall liking of the novel is, you know, it's great. Do I think that it's as good as Pillars of the Earth? No, but I do think that it is a really good follow-up piece of literature to Pillars of the Earth. I mean, it's a well-researched, like everything Ken Follett does, it's a well-researched, beautifully detailed portrait of 13th century England. I mean, it's got, you know, outlaws. That's 1,000 pages. This is over 1,000 pages, just like Pillars of the Earth. It's a huge, epic story about historical stuff happening in southern England. 1,000 pages of outlaws, knights, bishops, death, murder, war, sex, politics, betrayals, infidelity, the harsh life of a peasant, medieval life just in general. And the research that Ken Follett puts into these novels is second to none. You can't get better researched historical fiction by anybody. I mean, it's just so detailed. I mean, Ken Follett, let's give you an idea. Pillars of the Earth is one of the top 5 best-selling novels in the history of the planet. It has sold a lot of copies, and overall, Ken Follett has sold almost 200 million copies of his books worldwide. So you know you are in the hands of a great storyteller anytime you pick up a Ken Follett novel. And World Without End is just the same. It is a great sequel to this Pillars of the Earth. I mean, we start out with some of the descendants of our main characters in Pillars of the Earth. Like we've got 4 characters we start out with right off the bat. And they're going to be our 4 main characters we're going to follow through most of the story, with a host and a large cast of other characters that they intermingle with and they have just dealings with. But I'm just going to focus on the 4 main here. And that is Murthen, a young boy, and we meet them all as young kids in the first little bit of the story. We meet them all as young kids. Murthen, who is a direct descendant of Jack, who was one of our main characters in Pillars of the Earth. And then we've got Karis, a young girl who is a direct descendant of Tom Builder, who is our main character in Pillars of the Earth. And then we've got also Gwenda and Ralph. And they are in a forest, and some knights come chasing. 2 knights come chasing a 3rd knight through the forest. The kids are out playing in the forest. These 3 knights, 2 of them chasing the other one. In self-defense, the one knight that's being chased, he turns and he fights in self-defense against the people that are the 2 knights pursuing him. He kills those 2 knights, but in the process, he is seriously injured, and he's also carrying what seems to be a scroll or a parchment or something that is very important. And he doesn't know if he's going to live or not, so he has one of these 4 kids help him bury that object. And that is the main sort of talisman plot point of the story. So now we've got this knight, Sir Thomas, the knight, these 4 kids, Murthen, Karis, Gwenda, and Ralph, who all know this secret, who all have seen him defend himself against these knights. And then the story starts from there, and we get into all of the political intrigue, the noblemans, the knights, everybody vying for power in the event of the Black Death. We get, and then so these 4 kids, we see them grow up. These Ken Follett historical fictions, they usually start, each one of them starts when the main characters are really young, and it kind of followed 1,000 pages worth of us following them as they grow into young adulthood. They're all kind of coming of age tales for our characters, and we get to see them grow and explore this medieval world of southern England and all the battles and intrigue and wars and just crappy. I mean, if you thought Pillars of the Earth was brutal, which it is, it's a brutal look at medieval life. I mean, we today have it so nice. I don't care what your problems are in the world today. You got it so nice compared to the characters in Pillars of the Earth or World Without End, because they are living in medieval squalor. 99.999% of them are. You know, only some of the noblemen and royalty are really, and even they don't even live in a house as nice as the one I live in now. I mean, let's face it, they don't even, I mean, it's just, even the royalty are living like peasants compared to the way I live right now, with my car and my house and my air conditioning and my running water and my hot water and my, you know, and I don't have Vikings and French armies sacking my village every other 10th year, and I don't have to work every single day to provide food for my family. I can just go to Astro Burger and stuff burgers and hot dogs down my face. I mean, look how fat I am. There were no, I would have just, they would have, if I was living in Kingsbridge in these times, they would have been like, the guy's a monster. Because they were peasants. They were probably just rail thin, And they would have seen me and they would have been like, "Who's this? The Kool-Aid Man." Anyway, Ken Follett describes the medieval life as something that you want no part of. You just want no part of it. You don't want no part of it. You don't want to be there. You want to read about it because it's fascinating. And he's such a great historical novelist. His research is so on point. You're there. You're in 13th century England for the adventures of these four characters. And, and some of them go to Italy. We've got Bishop Godwin, by the way. And don't tell anybody this. There's a Bishop Godwin in my novels. And I will admit, I may or may not have pulled that name from a couple sources. This book, and if you ever watched the old BBC Showtime Robin Hood series with Michael Praed and Judy Trott, there was a Bishop Godwin in that too. Anyway, that's the one bit of writing advice that I will give for this video, because sometimes in these book reviews I give writing advice. Naming your characters. Nobody copyrighted the name Godwin. If you find a character that you like in a book or in a mini series like Robin Hood, just and it works for your story, ain't nobody gonna stop you to, unless it's like a real don't use like Luke Skywalker. Don't be an idiot. Don't name your protagonist John Bon Jovi. All right? Come on. Be reasonable. Have your thefts. If you're going to be a thief, if you're going to be a name thief, make it so nobody will ever know until you confess it on YouTube. All right? That's just, that's my writing advice for this video. So, anyway, World Without End. If you've read Pillars of the Earth and you liked it, there's no reason why you shouldn't be reading World Without End. And then the sequel to that, Column of Fire, and this is even better news. In a couple months, Ken Follett is coming out with a prequel to Pillars of the Earth, set even 200 years previous to Pillars of the Earth. So it's going to be 4 books in this series. Just like my favorite Western series, Lonesome Dove. Now my favorite medieval series is going to have 4 books, just like my Lonesome Dove series has 4 books. It's almost as if the world is gracing me with all of this great literature to read in 4-book series. And hopefully, we'll even get a 5th Lonesome Dove book and a 5th Pillars of the Earth book. We can only hope. We can only hope. Because our lives are good. People in the 11th century didn't have it get this good, folks. They didn't have books like this to read. They did not. I don't know what the hell they did for entertainment. That's a good question. They certainly didn't have TVs or miniseries. Speaking of which, miniseries? So somebody did a miniseries of World Without End. I have it here. God, I tried to watch it. It's 8 hours long. How is it that we can have such a fantastic book and we get a mini-series made from the book that is such a piece of crap? Like I said, in my book reviews, I always say positive stuff about books. But when it comes to movies and TV, I will tell you if something's garbage. I just will. Because I don't care about offending the people that made this. It's not good. You can try watching it. Three hours in, I was like, nope, done. The hell with that. Don't bother. Don't bother. Read the book. It is great. Hope I've excited you about it. I didn't get too much into the plot. Historical fiction, man, if you're into that thing, if you're into Bernard Cornwell's Saxon Tales, if you're into the that miniseries with the Viking miniseries. If you're into any of that stuff, you have to read this because it's done by the master of historical fiction. I gave this, Pillars of the Earth, a really high rating. I mean, it's one of my top 5 books in the world, so I'll just spoil the rating for you. It's a 10 out of 10. I give this one about a 9.5 out of 10. I don't think I enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed everything about it. But it didn't, I just enjoyed that one better. So 9 out of 10 for World Without End by Ken Follett. You cannot go wrong with any Ken Follett book. I promise you folks that.